Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. My name's Ben from the Problem of Being Awake. I've just done a 3-hour successful phone find, but you know what they're like when you're panicked. I found it in the recycling. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. We have a major attack on free speech in the UK and Europe. And people are getting some very serious consequences for some very minor things. And do I have to adopt what I say because of that? Yeah, probably I do at this point. I don't think it can last because the media parroting the government agenda that's coming in. It's all propagandizing everything. But Keir Starmer's popularity is just through the roof. And you've seen and you've heard of, if you're in the States, you'll have heard of the UK riots. And I don't condemn rioting or violent activism. If you can't do it peacefully, you shouldn't be doing it. But I do understand some of the sentiment behind it. I wish we could have a peaceful protest. Unfortunately, I think that the protests that are trying to bring common sense back to this country are being overshadowed by both the Free Palestine gang, pro-Hamas gang, who never get, when they screamed from cars with Palestine flags on their cars, all draped all over their cars, screaming for the most horrible things in the world to be done to Jewish people, and they face no consequence. Yet somebody makes a remark that a person finds offensive, and that it's a right-wing remark, then you find that person, just for one tweet, one Facebook post, could now be going to jail. Now, the reason this is very significant at this point of time is the odds of the UK having a civil war are 33%. Now, the odds of America having a civil war are lower now. It was higher before the election, but America is a vast landscape with very different cultures in each state. But Britain's not. I'm waiting to see what comes out of the January consensus. But, if you look through history, the suppression of free speech is the main predictor of rioting. It is. It's the main predictor of civil war. It's the main predictor of an overturning of a regime. And we can go back to any regime in history where if you spoke out against the status quo, against the government of the time, up until the 1900s, you were killed for it, generally speaking. Galileo paid a hefty price for finding out so much about the world that was very useful to everyone else but the church. And that kind of witch hunt's still going on today, and I will call it a witch hunt, because I've just seen a video which I will make a longer video and share about it. But a lot of people are just saying common sense things. And if they happen to offend somebody, then they're being arrested. This is not a good way, a healthy way for society to go. Because there's only so much you can push back as a government. You can push on a government. There's only so much a government can push on its people before its people turn around and revolt. Now, Keir Starmer has lost 49 points in favourability since he got elected, so I think there may be a chance he might get a vote of no confidence, and will Rachel Reeves, because her budget is going to destroy the UK if it is put into effect. So if you look back through modern Western history, when you put a law in place that blocks free speech, that's because why would that be in place? It's not because some people are getting offended by it. It's because so you can control the narrative of how people speak, get them used to speaking in the establishment terms. That's the idea behind it. If you've read George Orwell's Ministry of Truth, that's the idea behind that as well. So I'm going to draw a correlation that the more you suppress free speech, the more unhappy people become about their government and about the country they're living in. And if you dare to speak out and say things that are considered offensive to some people, I don't believe I don't believe I can make a video that no one will find offensive. I just don't believe it's possible in this world with so many people who deliberately look for offence in their in videos, etc. So people out there doing a full-time job policing the internet and reporting people. And you know, when you have an internal reporting system where people who are prepared to report on their own citizens, their own neighbours, then you have the beginnings of a totalitarian state. You know, secret policing has always been a big part of a totalitarian state. Two-tier justice systems, huge part of a totalitarian state. You know, there's been no justice for the people. The pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protests have been going on round the clock since October the 7th, but there have been consequences for everyone who dares to oppose that ideology. And it's not even our ideology. It's not Britain's ideology. It's not a Muslim ideology. It is a British, it is English, it is Scottish, it is Welsh, it is Irish, but it is certainly not a Muslim ideology. We have a huge Muslim population in terms of percentage. I think it's the big, well, no, now it will be different, but before all of the mass migration in Europe, we did have the biggest percentage. And, you know, one thing I would draw a distinction is, you know, people are talking about Islamists more than they're actually recognizing that Islamists represent a very small part of the Muslim faith. I'm not saying a tiny part because it is too large, but they are people who believe that the radical versions of Islam, that they read the Hadith. I mean, I'm generalizing here, but I'm assuming they read the Hadith, which is far less peaceful than the Quran, which is quite a peaceful book. I think it's good. I've read the Bible, I've read the Torah, I've read the Quran, and you know, I found that the Quran was most appealing to me. But there are things I obviously would contest. But we've got to remember that there are Muslims who follow the Quran and have made their lives here in England and are doing what they want to do. And there is an element where they haven't quite assimilated to English culture, but there's many places where they have over the last 25 years. Islamists, he said, I think I would explain the differences of the two, is a Muslim reads, this is the last and final religion, infidels must be converted. And your normal everyday Muslim will read that, and the message to them will be, well, let's see if we can convert some people to Islam because we want to bring our faith to them. The Islamist aspect of it, and there is a larger than there should be, people actively pushing hate and pushing these protests onto the British public. Islamists believe you either convert or your life is forfeit. It's a big difference. One, we want everyone to convert to our religion. So does Catholicism, so does Judaism. Everyone wants everyone to convert to their religion. But not Islamists have the condition that you convert to our religion or you can die. That's different. So we've got to make sure that we do not demonize all of the Muslim people in our country, but we've got to acknowledge that there are some who are instigating. They're being paid by Iran and Saudi Arabia and the UAE to instigate hateful crime, sort of hateful protesting, hateful speech in our universities. They've been propagating it since 2002. I've got a video about how all of this has been funded. But the top 5 funders to our education systems are all enemies. Qatar being at the top. The UAE is second. Qatar is part of the UAE, but the amount they've donated to our education system makes them stand alone. China, you'd think, would be first. It's third. Fourth, Saudi Arabia. Never know whether they're an ally or a friend. And fifth, Iran. That's how people contribute to our education systems. And those contributions come with conditions on speakers they can entertain and various things that they have to teach. And it's kind of corrupted a whole generation, Generation Z. Now, I think I'll leave this. The world is in such a strange place that the people who fought in the Olympic final of the female boxing category were both biological men with penises. That says it all. Really, that says everything you need to do. But free speech needs a comeback in the UK desperately and across Europe desperately. America are covered, luckily. We're covered by the First Amendment, so that's a big difference. But even that is taking a big hit at the moment, and censorship is the desire and the rule of the day. So keep that in mind, and just, if you are an online person and you do, I hate the word influencer, just you're doing what you're doing, just be mindful that you don't want to say something hateful, because it's not. One, it's never good. It can't be good to say something hateful by definition. But the people managing what's hateful have lowered the bar a fair bit. So I would always advise caution. But if they push it further, the more free speech is suppressed, the more likely a revolution is rising. That's been the case in every coup of all time, in every change of government of all time. Free speech being eroded and freedom of the press being eroded has been the thing that have pushed people over to the other side. So I'll leave it there. It's a great video. It had to be made. Hopefully I'm okay and you'll see me again. If you don't, I have been arrested because I said something. I don't know what it is, but I might have done. So hopefully not. Anyway, speak to you soon. Always a pleasure, never a chore. You be lucky, I'll be good.